My name is Helen R. Briggs. I am 31 years old, and until that night, I believed Ethan Cole was the man I would eventually marry. We had been together for 3 years. We shared a home, grocery lists, Sunday routines, and quiet conversations about children we had not yet decided to have. I knew how he took his coffee, and which side of his neck became tense when work overwhelmed him. Or at least, I thought I knew him. The ballroom smelled of champagne, gardenias, and melted candle wax. From table 7, I watched my friend Sarah dance with her new husband, David, beneath hundreds of warm lights. They looked at each other as though they had discovered something the rest of us had spent our lives searching for. I was genuinely happy for them, but watching love displayed so openly made me instinctively search for Ethan. He was not at our table. Across the dance floor, his laugh rose above the music. He stood beside Vanessa Hale, his ex-girlfriend from college. She had flown in for Sarah's wedding, though I had never known she and Sarah were particularly close. Vanessa wore a silver dress that caught the light whenever she moved. Ethan had one hand resting against the small of her back as he guided her toward the bar. She looked up at him with an intimate familiarity that made my stomach tighten. I checked my phone. 9:17 p.m. The message I had sent nearly an hour earlier remained unread. I'm at table 7. I saved you some lemon cake. A server removed the untouched glass beside me. Your boyfriend enjoying himself? He asked pleasantly. He's catching up with an old friend, I replied. Even to me, the sentence sounded rehearsed. The band shifted into a slower song. Couples entered the dance floor, and Ethan walked Vanessa directly into the center. He pulled her close. Not politely, not casually. His palm settled low against her back while her cheek rested on his shoulder. Their joined hands were pressed against his chest. For 3 songs, they never separated. Vanessa whispered into his ear. Ethan laughed and touched her waist. She playfully struck his chest, then left her fingers resting against his jacket. People noticed. Sarah's cousin Ben sat beside me and nodded toward them. Everything okay? Of course, I answered too quickly. They're old friends. Ben's hand landed briefly on my shoulder. It felt less like reassurance and more like sympathy. Even Sarah noticed. From the head table, her joyful expression faltered when she saw them. That was when embarrassment replaced jealousy. This was happening publicly. Ethan knew I could see him. Vanessa knew too. And neither of them cared. I found Ethan outside the men's restroom 20 minutes later. He was checking his reflection in a gilded mirror and adjusting the collar Vanessa had touched. Ethan. He turned, then sighed when he saw me. Helen. You finally decided to socialize. I've been sitting alone for more than an hour. I texted you. My phone was on silent. Are you okay? His eyebrows lifted. What kind of question is that? You've spent the entire reception with Vanessa. People are noticing. His face hardened with immediate contempt. God, could you be any more pathetic? It's just dancing. I stared at him. She's your ex-girlfriend. She's an old friend. A confident woman wouldn't feel threatened by that. This isn't about confidence. It's about respect. Ethan stepped closer. The cologne I had bought him suddenly smelled unfamiliar. Maybe you should try being more fun, he whispered. More like Vanessa. The cruelty was so deliberate that it quieted something inside me. Then he brushed past my shoulder. She's waiting. I followed him back into the ballroom with my eyes. Vanessa stood beside the bar. Ethan leaned down and she whispered something into his ear. Then she looked directly at me. A slow smile spread across her face. Ethan followed her gaze. He did not look guilty. He laughed. I was the joke. And in that moment, the pain disappeared. I walked to Sarah, hugged her, and told her the ceremony had been beautiful. You're leaving? She asked, glancing toward Ethan. I have a terrible migraine. Her expression softened with understanding. Call me tomorrow, she whispered. I nodded and walked out without looking back. The night air felt clean against my face. I drove home in silence, entered the dark house, and removed my heels beside the door. Everything around me belonged to the life I had expected to live. Our photographs, his jacket, the couch we chose together. Yet the house already felt like a museum. I changed clothes, brushed my teeth, and lay down on my side of the bed. I expected tears. None came, only exhaustion. As sleep pulled me under, one quiet thought passed through my mind. I would need boxes. The sound of a key scraping against the front lock pulled me from sleep. Sunlight streamed through the blinds in bright, narrow lines. I reached for my phone and checked the time. 2:17 p.m. I had slept for more than 12 hours. The front door opened, then slammed shut hard enough to shake the framed photograph in the hallway. Unsteady footsteps crossed the hardwood floor. A purse dropped onto the console table. The refrigerator opened, then closed again. I remained still. A minute later, the bedroom door creaked open. Ethan stood in the doorway, wearing the same charcoal suit from the wedding. His shirt was wrinkled, his tie hung loose around his neck, and there was a faint smear of silver glitter near his collar. Vanessa's dress had been silver. He stared at me as though he had expected to find me sitting upright, crying and waiting for an explanation. "You're still in bed?" he asked. I sat up slowly. "I tried calling you at least 10 times. My phone was off." He stepped farther into the room and crossed his arms. "So, you just left? You couldn't even tell me you were going?" "I had to get a ride home with Ben." "Do you have any idea how embarrassing that was?" I looked toward the empty cardboard box beside the closet. I had brought it in from the garage before going to sleep. Apparently, some part of me had known I would need it immediately. "What are you looking at?" Ethan asked. "The box." His eyes followed mine. "What box?" I climbed out of bed and picked it up. "The one I'm packing your things into." For several seconds, he did not react. Then he laughed. It was a short, disbelieving sound. "Very funny, Helen." I opened his side of the closet and began with his shoes. Dress shoes, running shoes, the brown boots I had bought him for Christmas. His laughter stopped. "What are you doing?" "Packing." "For what?" "For you." The first trace of uncertainty entered his face. I placed another pair of shoes inside the box. "Your sister is coming in an hour. I called Laura this morning." "You called my sister?" "Yes." His voice sharpened. "You're kicking me out?" "I'm ending the relationship." The silence between us became heavy. Then he scoffed. "Over dancing?" I lifted several shirts from their hangers. "Over what happened while you were dancing." "Oh, please. You're still doing this?" He followed me across the room. "You embarrassed yourself last night, Helen. Vanessa and I were catching up. That's all." "You spent hours ignoring me." "My phone was on silent." "You told me to become more like your ex-girlfriend." "Because she knows how to enjoy herself." The words came too quickly, too naturally. He must have realized it, because his expression changed. I folded one of his shirts and placed it inside the box. "This is insane," he said. "You don't throw away 3 years because your boyfriend danced with someone." "I'm not throwing away 3 years." I looked directly at him. "I'm refusing to throw away any more." His face reddened. "You can't just decide this by yourself?" "I can decide whether I remain in a relationship." "We live together." "The lease is in my name." That silenced him. I continued packing. His anger began to crack around the edges, revealing panic beneath it. "So that's it? No conversation? No chance for me to explain?" "You explained everything last night." "I was drinking." "You were honest." He stared at me as though I had struck him. Then he changed tactics. His shoulders lowered. His voice softened. "Come on, Helen. You know me. You know I didn't mean it." I almost laughed. Instead, I folded another shirt. "I thought I knew you." He stood beside the bed, watching me dismantle his place in my home one item at a time. When Laura arrived, she walked inside without knocking. "What happened?" she demanded. "Ethan said you're having some kind of breakdown." She stopped when she saw the boxes. Ethan sat on the edge of the bed, furious and pale. "She's kicking me out because I danced with Vanessa." Laura looked at me. "Seriously?" The decision is final. You're ending 3 years over one dance? It was more than one dance. Ethan stood quickly. Don't exaggerate. I met Laura's eyes. You can believe whatever version makes this easier. I only need you to help him collect the rest. Laura studied me for a moment. I expected an argument. Instead, she shrugged. Fine. Come on, Ethan. Let's get your things. The next hour passed in a storm of slamming drawers, muttered insults, and accusations loud enough for me to hear from the living room. I did not respond. When the last box was carried outside, Ethan remained by the front door holding his keys. His confidence had disappeared. You're really going to let me walk out? I looked at him. Yes. His lips parted. For one brief second, I saw fear in his eyes. Not fear of losing me. Fear that I was no longer afraid to lose him. He placed the keys on the table and walked out. The door closed behind him with a soft click. 3 days later, Sarah sent me a message. I heard what really happened after you left. Vanessa and Ethan disappeared from the reception together for nearly an hour. I'm so sorry, Helen. A second message arrived before I could respond. And there's something else. Vanessa has been seeing someone in Chicago. Ethan apparently knew. I stared at the screen. That meant Vanessa had not unexpectedly appeared in his life at the wedding. They had already been talking. The betrayal had begun long before the first dance. The first week after Ethan left, I kept expecting grief to arrive. I thought it would come while I was folding laundry and found one of his socks trapped beneath the couch. I thought it would come when I made coffee and automatically reached for the second mug. I thought it would come at night, when the house became so quiet I could hear the refrigerator humming from the bedroom. But grief never arrived in the form I expected. There was no dramatic collapse, no screaming into a pillow, no desperate urge to call him. There was only space. At first, that space felt unfamiliar. Then, it began to feel peaceful. I changed the sheets. I moved the armchair closer to the window. I filled the empty shelf in the bathroom with candles and skincare products I had always kept crammed into one corner because Ethan complained that I took up too much room. I started cooking meals he disliked. Spicy soup, garlic noodles, mushroom risotto. The smallest freedoms felt almost embarrassing in their sweetness. Meanwhile, the world kept sending me fragments of Ethan's collapse. Sarah called 5 days after he moved out. I wasn't sure whether to tell you this, she said carefully. But I think you deserve to know. I sat on the kitchen counter with a cup of tea cooling in my hands. What happened? Vanessa left the hotel the morning after the wedding. She flew back to Chicago without telling him. I stared at the steam rising from my cup. Okay. Sarah hesitated. That's not all. David spoke to Mark, one of Vanessa's friends. Apparently, she has been seeing a man named Ryan for almost a year. I felt something inside me tighten, but it was not heartbreak. It was recognition. So Ethan knew about him? Not everything, but he knew she was involved with someone. They had been messaging for weeks before the wedding. There it was. The truth I had already suspected. The reunion had not been spontaneous. The whispers, the smug glances, the way Ethan immediately defended her. None of it had started that night. The wedding had merely been the first time they stopped hiding it. What did Vanessa want from him? I asked. Sarah let out a bitter breath. To make Ryan jealous. At least that's what she told someone. She posted a photo with Ethan after the wedding, then deleted it when Ryan called her. I looked across the kitchen at the empty chair where Ethan used to sit. He had thrown away 3 years to become a prop in someone else's argument. Are you okay? Sarah asked. Yes. You sound too calm. I think I ran out of pain before I left the ballroom. She went silent. Then she said softly, I'm sorry I didn't step in. It wasn't your responsibility. It was my wedding. And he was my boyfriend. The sentence sounded strange in the past tense. My boyfriend. Something already finished. The first message from Ethan arrived that evening. I can't believe you told everyone our private business. I read it twice. Not because it hurt, but because I wanted to understand how someone could still make himself the victim while standing in the wreckage he created. I had told no one anything beyond what Sarah already saw. Another message followed. People are treating me like some kind of monster because of you. Then another. You ruined my reputation. I placed the phone face down and finished washing the dishes. The next day, his tone changed. Helen, we need to talk like adults. An hour later. 3 years should mean more than one bad night. Then. You know I love you. That message almost made me angry. Almost. Love had become a word he used when consequences frightened him. I still did not respond. A week later, Laura called. I nearly ignored it, but curiosity won. Helen, she said when I answered, I know you and Ethan are having problems. We are not having problems. We are no longer together. She exhaled sharply. He's falling apart. That is unfortunate. He barely eats. He missed 2 days of work. Vanessa blocked him. The last sentence came out with obvious resentment, as though Vanessa's rejection had somehow become my responsibility. What do you want me to do? Talk to him. Give him closure. He had closure at the front door. You know what I mean? I do. Laura's voice hardened. You were together for years. You cannot just erase someone. I didn't erase him. I removed him from my life. He made a mistake. No. He made a series of choices. She was quiet. I continued before she could interrupt. He chose to contact Vanessa. He chose to hide it. He chose to humiliate me in public. He chose to compare me to her. Then he chose to leave me alone while he followed her after the reception. Laura inhaled slowly. So you know about that. Her reaction confirmed there was more. What happened after the reception? Silence. Laura. He followed her to another hotel bar, she admitted. They kissed. Ethan said it stopped there. I closed my eyes. The revelation should have broken something. Instead, it completed a picture. Thank you for telling me. That's all you're going to say? Yes. I ended the call. That night, Ethan left a voicemail. His voice was rough and uneven. Helen, please. I know I messed up. Vanessa was a mistake. She used me. She told me she missed what we had, and I believed her. He paused, breathing heavily. But nothing really happened. Not the way people are saying. I was confused. I was drunk. I felt ignored by you for months. There it was. The apology curdling into blame. I just need you to understand why it happened, he continued. You became distant. Everything was routine. Vanessa made me feel wanted. I deleted the voicemail before it finished. For the first time since the wedding, anger finally came. Not because he kissed her. Not because he lied. Because even while begging, he still needed me to carry part of his guilt. I walked into the bathroom and looked at myself in the mirror. The woman staring back seemed tired, but clearer. For years, I had mistaken patience for loyalty. I had believed that loving someone meant continuously translating their cruelty into something forgivable. Stress, alcohol, fear, confusion. But cruelty did not need translation. It needed a boundary. 2 days later, Sarah sent me a screenshot. It was a message Ethan had sent to a group chat. Helen has always been cold. Vanessa just reminded me what passion felt like. Underneath it, Ben had replied, Then why are you begging Helen to take you back? Ethan left the group immediately afterward. I stared at the screenshot for a moment, then laughed. It was the first real laugh I had experienced since the wedding. Not joyful, not cruel, just amazed. He wanted to be the betrayed man, the passionate man, and the remorseful man all at once. But the truth would not bend enough to hold every version. 3 weeks passed. I went back to the gym. I started hiking on Saturday mornings. I bought a bookshelf and filled it with novels I had postponed reading because Ethan said books made the living room look cluttered. The house slowly became mine again. Then, at 1:17 a.m. on a Thursday, my phone rang. Ethan. I let it stop. A voicemail appeared. This time, he was crying. Helen, I have nothing left. Vanessa wants nothing to do with me. Sarah blocked me. Ben blocked me. Even David told me never to contact them again. A broken breath crackled through the speaker. I miss you. I miss our home. I miss waking up beside you. You were the only stable thing in my life. I listened until the end. Then I saved it. Not because I missed him, because I needed a reminder of the difference between being loved and being useful. Ethan did not miss me. He missed the life I had built around him. And for the first time, I understood that his loneliness was not proof of my value. It was simply the echo of everything he had chosen to destroy. 6 weeks after the wedding, I walked out of the gym on a cold Saturday morning with a towel around my neck and a pleasant ache in my muscles. The parking lot was nearly empty. Frost clung to the edges of the cars, and my breath formed small clouds as I searched for my keys. Helen. I froze. Ethan stood several yards away. He looked thinner. His hair was unkempt, and the expensive coat he once wore with effortless confidence now hung awkwardly from his shoulders. For the first time since I had known him, he seemed uncertain of his place in the world. How did you know I was here? I asked. Laura told me you started coming on Saturdays. Of course she had. He hurried toward me. Please, just give me 5 minutes. I did not invite him closer, but I did not leave either. He stopped beside my car. I know you hate me. I don't. The answer confused him. You should. Hating you would require more energy than I'm willing to give. His eyes filled with tears. I made a terrible mistake. I waited. Vanessa lied to me, he continued. She told me she had always wondered what would have happened if we stayed together. She said Ryan didn't understand her. You knew about Ryan. I knew they were having problems. You also knew you were in a relationship. His mouth tightened. I was confused. No. You were flattered. The words struck harder than anger would have. Ethan looked down at the pavement. She made me feel important. And I didn't? That's not what I meant. It is exactly what you meant. He lifted his head quickly. Our life became routine, Helen. We stopped going out. We stopped being spontaneous. I felt invisible. I almost admired how desperately he tried to make betrayal sound like loneliness. You could have spoken to me. I didn't know how. But you knew how to speak to Vanessa. He had no answer. A car passed at the edge of the parking lot, its tires crunching over loose gravel. Ethan wiped his face. I lost everyone. That was not my decision. Sarah blocked me. David told me never to contact them again. Ben won't even look at me. Vanessa went back to Ryan, and Laura is tired of me living in her apartment. Every sentence was about what had happened to him, not what he had done to me. I'm alone, he whispered. I know. His face crumpled. That's all you have to say? Yes. After 3 years. You ended those 3 years in one evening. It was one mistake. It was a confession. He stared at me. At the wedding, you showed me who you were when you believed someone better had become available. That isn't fair. You ignored me publicly. You mocked me when I asked for basic respect. You told me to become more like Vanessa, then followed her after the reception and kissed her. His expression shifted. Laura told you. Yes. It didn't mean anything. That makes it worse. He blinked. If destroying our relationship meant nothing to you, then there was nothing left to save. Tears slid down his face. I still love you. No. You miss what I provided. That's not true. You miss the house, the routine, the person who absorbed your moods and made your life comfortable. You miss being forgiven before you apologized. His grief sharpened into anger. So, you're perfect now? No. You think going to the gym and buying books makes you better than me? No. You turned everyone against me. I never asked anyone to choose. They chose you, anyway. That should tell you something. His jaw clenched. For a moment, I saw the man from the wedding again. The contempt, the entitlement, the need to hurt me because he could no longer control me. You're heartless, he spat. I opened my car door. That night, you told me to stop being pathetic and become more like Vanessa. He stared at me. So I became someone confident enough not to compete for a man who had already chosen to humiliate her. His anger disappeared. I continued quietly. I became the woman you told me to become. The first thing she did was leave you behind. His face went completely still. Then rage twisted through it. I hate you. I know. I got into my car and closed the door. He remained in the parking lot as I drove away. 3 months later, I met Sarah and David for coffee. Sarah studied me over her latte. You look happy. I am. She smiled. I heard Ethan moved back to his hometown. Laura said he couldn't make things work here anymore. I stirred my coffee. The information felt distant, like news about someone I had once known in another life. I hope he finds what he's looking for, I said. Sarah searched my face. There was no cruelty in my words, no secret satisfaction, only truth. Then I leaned forward. Now show me the honeymoon photographs. You've been promising for months. Her face brightened as she reached for her phone. Soon, the screen filled with blue water, white buildings, and sunlight. David joked about getting lost in Athens, and Sarah laughed until she nearly spilled her drink. Warm light touched my back through the cafe window. My coffee was good. The company was better. For the first time in years, I was not waiting for someone else to choose me. I had already chosen myself.